Hi, my name is Justin Gaymon. I help manage youth programming here at Atlanta Track Club. I'm here with Gerald Kosoff, math teacher and cross-country and track and field coach here at KIPP Atlanta Collegiate. And we're here to have a conversation about race relation, social injustice, racial bias in our community, all a part of our Common Ground initiative. Now, as you can see, my face mask is kind of slipping a bit, but we are social distance. We're 6 feet apart, so I think we can go ahead and take our masks off to have this conversation.
I think that's okay as well. Thank you.
I think we're safe.
We always start practice mask on, and then once the kids are far enough apart running, I say, okay, you can lower them or take them off. So we try to be responsible with it.
All right. So I guess I told my background. I'm a manager at Atlanta Track Club, managing youth programming. Former 400-meter hurdler back in the day. I think I still got it a little bit. But tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, so I've been teaching in Atlanta. This is my 9th year of teaching, 7th year here at KIPP. I started my career at Carver High School, taught there for a couple years, and then came over to KIPP in 2014. I teach math, as you mentioned. I mostly teach seniors. So this year that's statistics and calculus. They're really fun stuff. Oh yeah. And then I got started coaching about 4 or 5 years ago. So I think this is my 5th season of coaching both cross country and track. I started as an assistant coach with Betsy Kim, who was a Georgia Tech graduate who started our program here, or really grew our program, and then I've been able to take it over and grow it from there. I'm originally from Rochester, New York. So yeah, pretty far from Atlanta. I will say the summer months are tough running here, you know, growing up running in Western New York. I'm a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, and ever since I graduated, I've lived in Atlanta, and I plan to, my fiance and I recently bought a house about 2 miles down the road from here, so we're planning on making Atlanta our home for the long run.
Cool. Well, you may already know, I mean, we worked together a bit, but I grew up in the Northeast, New Jersey, and lived in New York for a while, in Brooklyn, New York, but now back here in Atlanta. And Jerry and I, we worked together. A part of my youth programming tasks kind of include managing our partnership with Atlanta Public Schools. It's a really great partnership. We get to work directly with Atlanta's cross-country and track and field coaches like Jerry here, and the whole goal is to help support them through mainly 3 bucket ideas. One, helping support the athletes in their performance, generating excitement for the athletes so they feel like track and field and cross country are exciting sports to be a part of, and building community between teammates and the teams within APS, so they generally feel like they have a really meaningful community to be a part of. And it's a lot of fun. So going back to you though, back to running, do you prefer cross country or track and field?
That's tough. I really liked both for very different reasons. So growing up, I was a 4-year cross country and track athlete. My 8th grade year, I played football, and that went about as well as you might expect it to go for someone like me, which is to say not well at all. And actually my English teacher that year was our high school's cross country coach. And so some of my friends were on the team, and I was looking for another sport to try, so I tried it out. And then just kind of cross country became indoor track, became outdoor track, and it wasn't really until my sophomore year that it all kind of clicked, and I actually started training on my own and doing the things that I was supposed to do during practice to make myself better, and then lo and behold, I got better. And so I loved cross country for the team camaraderie of it, because everyone is racing at the same time when you go to a cross country meet. Everyone's doing the same distance, everyone's doing the same course. You are all in it together, whether you're finishing first or you're finishing in the very back of the pack. Everyone knows what the other people are experiencing, and so I think there's a real camaraderie to that, and real bonding that occurs. On the other hand, track, with its diversity of events, is really cool because you get, like, I personally find track meets super exciting. Like, my idea of a good time is the fact that I get to go to like Saturday showcase track meets here in Georgia and see all the different competition from all the different schools. And you know, I always specialize in the longer distance races. You know, anyone who can do anything shorter than an 800 is, you know, incredible to me, because I don't know how you can get your body to move that way. So hurdles, I really don't know how you did the 400 hurdles. That truly seems insane. And so I think there's something to be said about getting to be a part of that kind of team where everyone has their specialty, but you all contribute to a larger whole, and you still have your group. So, the throwers might still have their crew and their coach that they work with. The distance runners got them. The hurdlers got their own coach. But everyone coming on the bus rides together, you get to interact with different people. Our track team usually has more people on it than the cross country team, so you get a wider variety of folks who maybe play other sports that get to come and be a part of this.
Basketball players doing high jump.
I wish. We're working on that. We're working on that. But yes, exactly. Some of our football players come out to work on their speed and agility throughout
That's how I got started.
Absolutely. So as a coach, I really try to kind of play up those aspects of each respective sport. So cross country, we really do feel like a family. And track, we feel like a different kind of family where it's a little more extended and everyone's still working towards the same goal, but there's a little bit more specialty and individuality that comes into track than cross country.
Right. So you mentioned the word camaraderie a few times there, and I know your team is predominantly black, right?
We are, almost entirely.
Yeah, so a lot of coaches have to deal with the issue of building camaraderie between teammates of different race, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different experiences. Can you talk a bit about just kind of the makeup of your team?
Yeah, so our school, as you mentioned, is almost entirely black. So I think it's somewhere around 98, 99%, and then the remaining, I can count on one or two hands the number of Hispanic students that we have in our school. And so our team is similar. So we have a few of our Hispanic students that run on our team, and then the rest are black students. We still need to do team bonding and build that team atmosphere because kids are still coming from different backgrounds, different parts of the city. Our school has 3 middle schools, so incoming 9th graders and even into 10th grade, they don't know everyone yet, and so we do have to build some bridges there. But I don't have to bridge racial dynamics, but we still need to bridge other dynamics, whether it's gender or age, and try to make everyone kind of be on the same page and working towards the same goal.
And then as a white coach with mostly black, almost completely all black athletes, how did you navigate bridging that level of camaraderie between you as a coach and the athletes?
I've had to learn how to grow into and live in my own whiteness and what that entails. I'm grateful that I teach in a school where there's 60 or 70 teachers and I'm one of 4 or 5 white teachers. So I'm really grateful that the students that I work with get to see themselves reflected in their staff. And we do have it's predominantly black staff, but we have other races as well. And so they get a diversity of experience. But if I didn't own the fact that hey, I'm a white guy from Rochester, New York, kids would see through that. I can't be something that I'm not.
It's gotta be real.
Exactly. And so I have to be true to myself. So that does mean that I make corny jokes. It does mean that, if students are trying to put me on to some new music, I am very much not with it at first, and that's okay. And,
a little Uzi?
maybe. I know right now, and I'm going to sound so old and dated with this, but I know right now Gunna is popular. Lil Baby's popular, so we have that playing at practice sometimes, and I get to know it a little bit. But it's I gotta be me first, and so I also have to create an environment where kids can be themselves first. And so I don't think if I were willing to embrace that, I don't know if I would get the same level of authenticity from the athletes that I see, where they do feel comfortable sharing and being a part of stuff and trusting me. I have to build that trust. That's not assumed.
Right. So I guess, do you have those are pretty good tips for just anyone who is finding themselves in a situation where they have to lead or coach individuals who are not of the same race or background as them? Do you have any other kind of tips that you've picked up along the way?
I mean, I do believe first and foremost is to know yourself and be authentic to yourself. So I obviously I already mentioned that. I would also say the skill of listening and the skill of truly listening and asking questions and not making assumptions can go a long way. And athletes, especially in a sports environment, I mean, I work with a lot of athletes who want to be coached, who are looking for advice, who have questions. But if I make assumptions about what they're thinking, then they might shut down. And so that's important, authenticity, and then like true listening. And if you say you're going to give athletes a voice into decision making, then they need to truly have a voice. It's not enough for me to say, hey, Kanaya, what do you think we should do for this warm up? And then, she says something, I say, okay, great, thanks for saying that, and then go off and do my own thing. I really do try to empower some of our, older team members to lead things. It doesn't have to, not every workout has to come from me. I need to set the vision and help get people on board, but athletes know themselves, they know their bodies, and so it's my job to work with them to help them maximize their performance. But that doesn't mean that I need to completely run the show, and that's just not my style.
Yeah. Have you had any instances where you felt like there was a problem or was an issue because you are a white coach of a black minority team? And if that has been the case, how did you navigate that?
That's a good question. There's no immediate incident that comes to mind, but that could also then mean that there have been things that I'm not being aware of that have been issues for students. I mean, not every kid comes back every year. And so sometimes I think it's, they don't love the sport, or they didn't, love the teammates, or they didn't have a good time, or maybe I didn't communicate well with them and build that relationship for myself. I mean, we got 50 students on our track team. I don't have a deep personal relationship with everyone. And so, I can't think of any cultural breaches that have been specifically focused on race. We have had some that have involved, particular athletes getting into an argument, or my own communication style sometimes isn't as direct as other coaches. And so there have been situations where athletes felt like I wasn't being upfront with them. And there's a particular situation a couple years ago where there was an athlete who thought she was going to be running the 300 hurdles actually in our region meet, and she wasn't. But I did not reach out to her first to let her know, hey, we're going to put these two people in, and these are the other events you're going to do. And so she heard it for the first time by seeing it on a list, on my door, and felt really blindsided by that, and felt that, I wasn't doing right by her and I wasn't communicating effectively with her. And so I don't know if that was a racial dynamic per se, but there was a communication gap. And I do think our cultural backgrounds played into that. I was raised, not to be super direct and, assertive all the time. And there's something about white culture there. I don't want to speak too broadly there. But, my athletes appreciate me being direct with them. And that was a lesson I had to learn. I'm grateful to say that, that athlete that was affected by that and I have had a number of conversations since that have restored that relationship. But in that moment, it was not good.
Right. And you don't know if it's, like you said, if it's because of some sort of racial barrier to communication, or if it's something else, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask, so, as a coach, do you, what kind of situations have you come across over the few years being here at KIPP Collegiate with a mostly black team? What have you see that has been kind of challenging for your athletes? Have you seen any barriers they had to overcome because of the color of their skin?
Yeah, there's a couple I can think of. So when we travel to meets that are outside of the metro Atlanta area, we're not always comfortable going. And we've been to places where we're, riding on the bus ride out, and, you'll see, we'll drive by houses or businesses that have Confederate flags set up in the front yard, and we're driving by and we're going to go to the school that's in that district to race a track meet. I mean, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I can't imagine what that was going to do to some of my athletes. And that's a hard thing to do when we're trying to be focused for a race. And I don't want my athletes to feel like they're, they have to always keep one eye over their shoulder, which, they probably do anyway. And so another example is the state. We've been to 2 locations for the state track meet. Great venues, but we stayed in Albany, Georgia, and we've also stayed in Rome, Georgia. And so sometimes when we're leaving the facility that we're at, I have to be very strategic about where are we going to eat dinner tonight? What hotel are we staying at? I need to make sure that I know where we're going and that the families of students know that we're going, and the students themselves know that where we're going, so that they feel comfortable that we're not going to be going to some place where they feel like everyone's looking at them and wondering if they belong here. And I've had a few athletes share with me, like, I didn't feel very safe in the towns that we were driving around, and you know, I didn't want to really go into that mall. I didn't really want to go into that restaurant, but you know, I'm kind of just forging ahead, like, oh, here we are, we're all here together, follow me, kids. And you know, I need to be cognizant of that I'm really just aware, I guess is the best term there.
Yeah. You talked about it a little earlier about getting buy-in from your athletes and communicating with them, but how often do you kind of go to them when it comes to those kind of decisions of, hey, you know, we're traveling for a meet far from home, where do you guys want to go to eat, and does race come into that? Do you guys feel comfortable going here or there? Do you have those conversations with your athletes, or?
I'm grateful to some parents who have pushed me on this in the past. So I have had a few parents of athletes who have, you know, kind of called me the week before and say, I need you to run me through this weekend so that I know that, you know, and this, they're just being parents in general, but there's the added dynamic of, you know, I've got a 16-year-old black son or a 15-year-old black daughter, and I need to know where y'all are going so that I feel comfortable sending them in the van and having you drive them off to 2 hours away or wherever it is that we're going. So I had a few more of those conversations with parents than I have had with athletes. That's what I'll say to that.
Yeah. And I mean, as you know, Ahmaud Arbery was recently killed while out on a run. George Floyd and other black people have been victims of police brutality, just straight killings. And obviously that's been hard for, I think, a lot of people, but obviously black people in particular. Have you been able to have conversations with your athletes to support them through this time, and how have those gone?
Yeah, I've had some. I think I could do better about just checking in. I mean, like, we're all, you know, we as a staff at our school, you know, like, I know I'm not trying to speak for other people, but I've heard from a lot of my colleagues of color that's just like, we're tired of being tired. And we're taping this on August 24th. I woke up this morning to another video on my Twitter timeline of a man being shot in the back at point blank range for not following directions, apparently. I don't know, but it's pretty clear that this was a police shooting and that man should be alive today. We as a KIPP community had a student get shot by a police officer and die about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and of course it's crazy because there are so many of these incidents that happen that there are, you know, the ones that make national media and others that really affect local communities deeply. So we as a KIPP family really felt that loss, and you know, of course, some of my athletes on the team are you know, were friends with the young man. You know, should he rest in peace. And so I did reach out to a few of them and just, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What's going on? But I can acknowledge that I don't start practice with, all right, team, let's debrief, you know, the latest happenings. And so I do grapple sometimes with, like, how do I create space where students can process and grieve while also acknowledging that, you know, you're here to have practice and you want to get better at track and you want to be better at cross country. But I do want to be a person that they feel that they can have those conversations with, because I know I am a trusted adult. So I do think I could do better there.
Yeah. I think it's just as you just said you're doing, just checking in and just saying, hey, if you guys want to talk about this, my door is open. And then kind of meeting when you feel like kids might want to talk about it and they're hesitant to, but I think that's probably the first step, is just letting kids know and letting people know that you're willing and able to just talk and listen. Yeah.
Which is, I know what the track club is trying to do with this program, is just take the first step of listening. I am grateful that I know that it's going to turn to action next, because I think, especially among white people, you know, we white people can have lots of conversations with each other and, you know, make ourselves very aware, but if we're not going to commit to a tangible action or be a part of an organization that is working towards tangible actions, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. It's also, like you kind of said, there is no guideline, there's no book to how to have conversations around race or how to take action to kind of make sure that your workplace or your team or your organization or whatever it is is doing the right thing to make sure that racism is rooted out, or that biases are rooted out. There is no black and white to it. So, like you said, I think these conversations are just great for generating ideas that we can use to move forward and kind of trial and error it. And because there is no set way, there is no right, no real wrong. And I think as long as like you're doing, you feel like you want to make an impact, and you feel like that there are injustices, and you're just willing to listen and willing to kind of do what you feel is right to make a positive impact. I think that's a great step in the right direction. So when you first heard about this Common Ground initiative and we asked you to be a part of it, what first came to your mind? What excited you? What intrigued you? What interested you?
It's funny you mentioned when I first heard of it, I thought, oh, this is a really interesting series. I'm excited to hear these conversations. I hope that it's not just conversations for the sake of conversations and say, we talked about racism and pat ourselves on the back and keep it moving, but that it could be the start to lasting policy change and having the track club kind of really examine their policies, their procedures, who's the decision makers, who are being affected by the decisions. And so once I learned that it was intended to be the first step towards that, I got excited. When I got asked, my first reaction was, they want to talk to me. They do know that I'm like the white guy who's coaching. Okay, well, I guess I'm positioned. Okay, and I kind of talked myself into it, not talked myself into it, but realized that I do have, I do have a position of privilege of being a white person, and I do recognize that I try to be a good steward for our school and our students and be a positive representation of all the wonderful things that we do. So I do know that I can speak to that experience of what it's like to be a white person working with and leading and supporting black athletes. And so I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do that.
Right. 'Cause that actually was my experience when I was in middle school. I went to a school that was predominantly black, and we had a white football coach. And so that was a little weird. We always kind of thought, like, why is it that the only person around here is the coach, the guy who's in charge?
Yeah.
So I think it is, like you said, really important that you acknowledge that, and that you take steps on your own to kind of figure out how you can just be yourself, and just make sure that your kids are feeling comfortable with you. So
yeah, I don't want to be the only voice in the room, and I do, especially during track season, I do work with other coaches, all of whom come from different backgrounds. We have mostly black coaches that work with me as well, and we're a team. Like we all have our specialties, and we all work together, and we all have a common goal of working with the kids and seeing them do their best. So I don't want to be the only voice in the room.
And then your school, KIPP Atlanta Collegiate, it's a unique school, a charter school based here in Atlanta. Can you talk more about just the school itself, the dynamic of the school? And I know you talk about it's almost predominantly, almost 100% black, but can you elaborate more on the school?
So yeah, as you mentioned, we are KIPP Atlanta Collegiate. KIPP stands for Knowledge is Power program. It's actually a national charter network. It's all free public charter schools. And here in Atlanta, KIPP Metro Atlanta has 11 schools, but this is the only high school. So we have a lot of elementary middle schools, and then that feed into this potential high school. So not every kid who goes to a KIPP elementary middle school ends up at our high school, but a lot do. As I mentioned, we are a free public charter, so anyone who lives within Atlanta Public Schools could apply and be eligible to join us. And we're really grateful that we are in the old, this is the Henry McNeil Turner building. And so Turner High School has been around in Atlanta Public Schools for a lot longer than KIPP has as an organization, and really was a school of excellence for a long time. And so we hope to build upon, part of our mantra is that we are warriors standing on the shoulders of giants, empowered by this. I got that backwards. Who are you? Warriors standing on the shoulders of giants, empowered by the spirits of our ancestors. There we go. I got the mantra down. And we acknowledge that Turner High School is a lot of really powerful, amazing black Atlantans have graduated from this building, and so we hope to be producing the next generation of entrepreneurs, business leaders, lawyers, doctors, whatever the kid wants to do. We want to support them through that. whether that's college, career, going into the military and serving our country. We believe that anything's possible. So I'm grateful that I get to be a part of that.
Awesome. And, with a school that anyone with an APS can choose to apply into, how does, in your opinion and what you've seen and kind of what you know, how is it that the school becomes almost 100% black? You can count the number of white kids on their hand. Like, how does that come to be, and what are some things that you believe should be changed to just change that?
Whew, how much more time do we have? That's a
very deep question.
That is a broad question
Yeah.
that you can trace back to the history of public education in this country. The fact that we have as much school segregation racially as we do now is not a bug in the system. It is very much by design in a lot of cities. It is definitely a feature. Here in Atlanta, you look at, I think we have 13 high schools, and at least 9 or 10 of them probably look identical to us.
Yeah.
And so that is a history of redlining, of gerrymandering, of property tax base. There's white flight involved in that. So in terms of like bringing it all to the present day, the deck is definitely stacked. Obviously, a lot of that plays into why we end up with predominantly black schools when you have a public charter in a district like Atlanta Public Schools. There are, honestly, there just aren't a lot of white families that live in the neighborhoods around the place that we have our schools, in the zip codes that we serve. Even though anyone in Atlanta Public Schools is eligible, there's a lot of the school districts are fairly segregated in that way.
Yeah. Last question I wanted to ask you was just because Atlanta Track Club, like you said, we're kind of going forward with this Common Ground initiative because we want to learn what we can do to become a better organization amongst our staff members, our just members, our leadership. What are some things that you feel Atlanta Track Club can do better to be more welcoming?
I love some of the things I've heard in the other interviews, but I'll speak to the youth side of it. So that's part of your role. I can speak from my experience as kind of the high school coach. We are Atlanta Track Club is on the right track. Pardon the pun. But y'all have come out and supported our cross country meets. Y'all have helped us run some of our track meets, and bringing some of that energy to make the meets feel a little bigger and a little more exciting is really, really great. The kids get really into it. I've been grateful for the opportunities that you've given myself as a coach to attend clinics and receive supplies. So continued investment into our schools, all of our Atlanta public schools, I think is going to go a long way to just show that we are here for the long haul and we're going to support you. Whether you've got 4 kids on your team or 14 kids on your team or 40 kids on your team, we're here to connect you to opportunities. As a teacher, I like to think of myself or I like to hope that I provide students with windows and mirrors in our curriculum. So I want them to see themselves reflected back in the content we do, in themselves presenting, their own learning and their own materials, so the mirrors, but also they need to have windows to other perspectives, other people in different cities, and so y'all have enabled us to kind of see through some of those windows. I hope that you continue to work on helping our students see themselves reflected in the mirror in terms of seeing themselves represented in large events. Y'all put on a cross-country camp in the summer that I was grateful to send a couple of our athletes to in the past. Their experience there was they were 2 black athletes out of over 120, 130 kids, and they had maybe a handful of other black athletes for them to meet. And so ensuring that when we do offer opportunities like camps, clubs, meets, that we get a diverse representation and kids can see themselves reflected in the mirror and then get windows to others as well, I think is really important.
Right, good point. Definitely working towards that, and definitely part of our major goals with the youth programming.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you feel you'd like to bring up before we wrap things up? Anything?
Yeah, so I'll admit that I don't have the answer to this right now, but I would want to know what the answers are to what does your executive decision-making team look like? What does the board of directors look like? Who's running for the community positions? It's a not-for-profit, so there are kind of community-based elections. I should hope that there is a diverse set of perspectives, men and women, white and black, other races accounted for as well, young and old, to ensure that we do get a diversity of perspectives and that people feel that they have a voice at the table.
Yeah. No, you can check out our website, landstrapclub.org, and you can see our board members on there. We also have a diversity and inclusion statement for anyone who wants to check that out. But yeah, I think that's something too, is to just be more kind of open and welcoming to people from different backgrounds, and being more kind of getting that out there.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm grateful to be a part of this club and part of the mission that we have, and grateful that I get to work with these amazing students and amazing athletes. So thank you for asking me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.